Okay, so let us begin. So what happened is last time when I was doing this example in the last class, I made a mistake in writing the lower triangular matrix, right? So that is why when you multiply LU, you don't get PA, right? So you get some wrong answer. So today I am going to redo this and try to show you what is the correct way of doing it, right? And then we will go back to where we left, where that is about the types of solutions, right? So first I will redo this exercise again, which was the exercise I gave you in the last class, and I will redo it again, right? So here is the point. So you move A with these row operations, right? So R2 minus 2 times R1 and R3 minus 1 times R1. You do this, right? So when you do this, you get 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 4. Right? So in this case, you know that you name them M21 as 2, M31 as 1. Right? So this is what you do in the first step, right? Elimination, first step. But what I did there is I used this to eliminate these two, right? When I do that, sorry, this one is 1. 1, 1, 1. And when you multiply the first row by minus 2 and add with second row, first row by minus 1 and add with the next row, so you get this. So this is the important part for lower triangular matrix, right? Because here I am writing my lower triangular matrix are like this: 1, M21, M31, 0, 1, M32, 0, 0, 1. Right? So these are my lower triangular matrix, right? According to Gaussian elimination. But because there is a 0, what you do in the next step is you interchange two rows, right? So you interchange row 2 and row 3, right? So when you do that, you get 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1, 1, 4, 1. Right? So this is what you get after interchanging two rows. Right? So this is clearly U. Right? So that is clearly U. But this is the mistake I made. Right? When I am interchanging two rows, R2 and R3, you know that these are the second and third components in the first column of L. Right? I should have done that as well. So when I do this one also, because second row and third row are changing. So these two has to interchange as well. So because of that, right, because of this, these two switch between themselves, right? So because of this transformation, this one also changes and this one becomes like this now, right? Now here there is no more row operations. So in this case, M32 is 0, right? So now if you write down your L, you will get this: 1, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Right? And then when you multiply by U, that is 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 4, 0, 0, 1. Right? So that is going to be, right, row into column is 1, 1, 1. This into this is 1, This into this is 2. This into this is 5. Right? So this into this is 2. This into this is 2. This into this is 2 plus 1 is 3. Right? So that is this. Now you can see that this, and also you know P, that I already write down. P is because you change only second and third rows. Your P will look like this. So 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and 0, 1, 0. Right? So you can now easily check that P times A is row 2 and row 3 interchange. Right? So this is the row 3 in A, that becomes row 2 there. And so you can clearly check that now this is PA. Right? So this is a mistake I made last time in the last class. So please go back and correct it. Right? Whenever I am interchanging the rows in Gaussian elimination, right, at a certain step, I have to look for the M's as well. Right? They also has to interchange. Right? So these two has to interchange whenever I do the row operations, right? So this is the correction. So you go back and correct it as in the previous notes, right? So here we see that it is PA is equal to LU, and then we have seen how to solve the problem in another example. So now you know that. Okay, so next, last class, what we left in the last class, we are going back, right? So now this correction is done. So you can take a look at this. That's fine. Right? So now we will go back to what was left in the last class, right? So last class we talked about solutions. Okay. So first one, unique solution type. Unique solution type, right? So unique solution, I give you the condition, right? Number of right? So I told you last class, the number of unknowns in the matrix U, right? So after you convert it back to the upper triangular system, right? So exactly one solution case, we see that when we convert the system into an upper triangular system, the number of non-zero rows in U is equal to the number of unknowns, then we have a unique solution. I gave you two examples also in the last class, right? So for the unique solution case. Now, the other case, infinitely many solutions. Right? So infinitely many solutions case. And so what happened when you have infinitely many solutions case? Right here, so in this case, infinitely many solutions case, right, the number of unknowns in the U upper triangular matrix is, sorry, the number of non-zero rows in the upper triangular matrix should be less than the number of unknowns in the system. Right? So that means roughly you can think of as, right, there will be a row of all zeros in the matrix in U, but the right hand side will also be zero, right? So you will have something like this. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples. So here is the first case. Okay, so here is a case. Right, so here you can see that the number of unknowns are 3, right, x1, x2 and x3, but the number of non-zero rows are 2. Only these two are non-zero rows. Here is the zero with, here is the row with all zero, right? At the same time, the right hand side is also 0 as well, right? So if you solve the last row, you will get 0 is equal to 0, right? So that is, you remember when we talk about solutions, that is what we see in two variable case, right? So when you have two variable equations, when we say infinitely many solution, we say that when you solve the equation, you will get 0 is equal to 0. This is what happens in a system of linear equations, right? You will end up with a set matrix with all 0 on the matrix, at the same time all 0 on the right hand side. So unfortunately for you, you don't know what is x3 in this case, because if you apply back substitution, this one is 0 is equal to 0. That does not help you in any way. So next equation, you know that x2 plus x3 is equal to 2, and x1 plus x2 plus x3 is equal to, I'll change a little bit. That's 2x3, let me see. 2x3 is equal to 2, and x1 plus x2 plus x3 is equal to 3. This is what you have. Right? So from this, you don't know x2. Right? So in this case, what you do is, the term which you don't know, the unknown term which you don't know, you name that as a t, where t is any real number. Right? So if you write t as a real number, then you can write x2. Right? So now you can write x2, that is 2 minus 2t. Right? 2 minus 2x3, so 2 minus 2t. x1 you can write, x1 is equal to 3 minus x3, that is t, minus x2, so minus of 2 minus 2t. Right? x1 is equal to 3 minus x2 minus x3. So that if you simplify, You get 3 minus 2 is 1, minus 3 plus 2t is 1 plus t. Okay, so your solution is this. So x is going to look like this. X1 is 1 plus t, right? X2 is 2 minus 2t. X3 is t, right? Where for all t belongs to real number. So you can change the values of t and get the different solutions, right? So because r is infinitely many numbers, so whenever you put whatever you put for r, t, you will get different solutions, right? So there is another way of writing this, right? So some people write this in a different way. Right? So some people right? So some people split the constant separately and t separately and write it like that also, right? So this same you can write as 1 and 1t separately, 2 and minus 2t separately, 0 and plus 1t separately, and then you take the t out, so you get t times 1 minus 2, 1, right? So this is another way of writing the solution, right? So whenever you see an infinitely many solution case, you will see some arbitrary real number in the solution, at least one arbitrary real number in the solution. Sometimes you may have two arbitrary real numbers also, right? Look at this example. Right, so if you look at this equation, here the number of unknowns is 4, right? But you have only two non-zero rows, right? So you have only two non-zero rows. You don't know x3 and you don't know x4 as well, because last two equations give you 0 is equal to 0, right? So you don't know x3 and x4, right? So you don't know x3, so you can take x3 as a t, right, where t belongs to real number, and x4 is something else, r or s, and so let's say s, right? So s, where s is another real number, right? So there is no problem in setting two unknown variables, right? So you can always set them, but you have to make sure you assign different values, right? So there is case where x3 and x4 might be equal, but at the same time they can be not equal as well. So in this case, then you can clearly write your x. So let me change it the other way. Right, so x4 I name it t and x3. So x2 is equal to 2 minus x3. So 2 minus s, and my x1 is 1 minus x4. So 1 minus t. Right, so if you want to write the solution x, you can write it as x1 is 1, x2 is 2, 0, 0, plus t times x1 has minus 1. Oh, let me write it here. right? So my x is this, right? So 1 minus t, 2 minus s and t. So if I want to split it, I have to write 1 2 0 0 plus s times 0 minus 1 1 0 plus t times minus 1 0 0 1, where t comma s belongs to real number, right? So you can write infinitely many solutions with two different variables as well, right? So do arbitrary parameters as well, right? So these s and t are called parameters, so you can write it in that way also, right? So this is the another example for infinitely many solutions, right? So sometimes you may have only one unknown variable to be defined as a parameter. Sometimes you may have more than one. This is two. Sometimes you may have three or four. It depends, right? So there is another case where you will have infinitely many solutions that we will not we will not go to that deeper, but just give you an example. Right, so this we will not have this kind of problem in our course, right? Because we always try to start with the problem where the number of equations and number of unknowns are same, right? Like this 4 cross 4 or 3 cross 3, like that. But this one is also possible, right? Say you have 3 equations but 4 unknowns. So already in the original problem you have one equation less. So definitely you will ended up with 3 equations, right? And 4 unknowns at the end, right? So when you are solving a system with 3 equations and 4 unknowns, automatically you have one equation less. So definitely you have to go for infinitely many solutions case. But sometimes you may ended up with no solution case as well, which we are going to see next. What is the no solution case, right? But definitely you will not have unique solution case in this type of examples, right? So if you look at the original problem, if the number of equations is less than number of unknowns, then clearly you can only have infinitely many solution case or no solution case, right? So I'm not going to do an example of that, but just for an information, you should know that also, right? So this is the second type of solution, infinitely many solution case. Now the third one, no solution case. The third case, no solutions. So in this case, right, right. So no solution case. In the 2 cross 2 example, when we earlier studied this, we see that a system has no solution, right? If you ended up with an equation 0 is equal to not 0, right? So here the same thing hold for this case, right? After converting the system into ux equal to z, right? So if you have zeros on a row in U matrix and non-zero term in the right hand side, then clearly you can say that the system has no solution, right? So this is an example. This is quite easy. Right? So 1 2 3 0 1 2 0 0 0. Right? So if you look at this equation, this system, right, after converting this into an upper triangular system, you have the last row all zero on the matrix, but there the right hand side is not zero. So last equation gives you 0 times x3 is equal to minus 2, right? So if you solve the last equation by back substitution, what you get is 0 times x3 is equal to minus 2. You all know that is wrong, right? So you cannot have 0 is equal to minus 2. So if you ended up with this kind of a situation in the upper triangular system, right, then you can see that the system has no solution, right? So no solution case is easy. You just need to look for a row with all zeros, but the right hand side is not equal to 0. So now you know the condition for the three types of solutions, right? So if it is a unique solution, you know that number of rows, non-zero rows, should be equal to number of unknowns. If it is infinitely many solutions, you should have at least one row with zeros on the right hand side and zeros on the left hand side as well, right? 0 is equal to 0. If it is no solution case, you should have 0 is equal to not 0, right? So then you will have non-zero. So based on this, let us look at a generalized example. Okay, so here is a system. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2 alpha, right? X1, X2, X3, three equation, three unknowns. So fine, right? So then the right hand side is 3, 5, and beta. Right? So now what the question is, okay, so here's the problem. You are given a system. You are asked to find the values of alpha, beta, such that the system has no solution, infinitely many solution, and unique solution. And you are asked to write down the solutions if they exist. Right? So for these type of problems, what you can do is you can apply Gaussian elimination without pivoting. Right? So if they ask you to use pivoting, then they will tell you. Otherwise, you can just use Gaussian elimination. No pivoting is required unless it is required. Right? So sometimes if you have a case of 0 on the diagonal, then you can use pivoting, right? So I will write this as a note here. Right, so this is the only place you may need to use pivoting. Otherwise, you don't need to do pivoting here. Right, so you can just use the normal Gaussian elimination without any problem. Right. So what I'm going to do is, when I do Gaussian elimination, I have to do it for the right hand side as well. So I will do it for augmented matrix. You must have learned this in somewhere in your lower level math. Right, putting the right hand side also inside the matrix and writing it as a matrix is called augmented matrix. So augmented matrix is this: you put A here, right, and then put a dot and put your B here. Okay. So this is easy for computation because you don't need to write x1, x2, x3 again and again and again. You only keep the numbers and then you can do the row operation as you want, right? So you can do it for everything at the same time, right? Otherwise, sometimes if you keep it like this and do the row operation, sometimes you might forget to do it for B, right? So if you keep it like this and do, you know that you will not forget doing it for B, you will keep on doing it for B. Right? So Gaussian elimination, R2 minus 1 times R1, R3 minus 1 times R2, sorry, R1. So when you do that, you can write down the values. It's a 1, 1, 1, 3. 0, 2 minus 1, 1, 2 minus 1, 1, 1 minus 3 is 2, 1 minus 1 is 0, 2 minus 1 is 1, alpha minus 1, then beta minus 3. Right, so you can check this work. Right, R2 minus R1 and R3 minus R1. So now, no need for interchanging. So you can evaluate again. This time R3 minus 1 times R2. So your first row is 1, 1, 1 and 3. Second row is 0, 1, 1 and 2. This minus this, 0, 1 minus 1 is 0, alpha minus 2, and beta minus 5. Okay? Row 3 minus row 2, so 0 is minus 0, 1 minus 1 is 0, alpha minus 1 is alpha minus 2, beta minus 3 minus 2 is beta minus 5. So now you have an upper triangular system. Right? So this is your upper triangular system. Right? So based on this, and you know the conditions for these, right? You know what you should have for no solution, what you should have for infinitely many solution, what you should have for unique solution. So you can develop conditions for alpha and beta, right? For that. Right? So let me do it one by one. Okay. So first case, no solution. Right. So you know no solution if you have 0 here and not 0 there. Right. So if alpha minus 2 is 0 and beta minus 5 is non-zero. If that is true, if alpha minus 2 is 0 and beta minus 5 is non-zero, then you clearly know that you have 0 here and non-zero here, so obviously no solution. So that is alpha should be equal to 1 and beta cannot be equal to 5, right? So that is the condition for no solution. Second one, infinite solution. It's an infinitely many solution case. This you know you should have 0 equal to 0. So you know that infinitely many if alpha minus 2 is 0 and beta minus 5 is 0. Both of them are 0. So that is alpha must be equal to 2 and beta must be equal to 5. Right? So now infinitely many solution case. So in that case, you have to write down the solution. Right? So if you put alpha is equal to 2 and beta is equal to 5 here, you get 0, 0. So you can set x3 as t, right? Where t belongs to real number. I already told you how to write the solution. So your x2 becomes 2 minus x3, that is t. x1 is 3 minus x3, that is t, minus x2 is 2 minus t. Right? So that is the case. Right? So if you solve this, you can write the solutions. Right? So that is infinitely many case. Now, unique solution case. So unique solution case, what we say is this: the number of non-zero rows should be equal to number of unknowns. So in this case, unique solution, right? So unique solution if you know that this is the row, if that is non-zero, fine, right? You don't need to worry about beta minus 5. Beta minus 5 can be anything, right? But only thing you need is this to be non-zero. If that is non-zero, you know that you have 3 non-zero rows. So fine, I have 3 unknowns, 3 non-zero rows. So I have a unique solution. So all you need to do is to have alpha minus 2 not equal to 0. Right? You don't need to worry about beta. So I put it in the bracket. Beta can be any value. So you don't need to worry about beta here in the unique solution case. You're only worried about alpha not equal to 2 case. Right? So that is alpha cannot be equal to 2. Beta can be anything. So in this case, you can write the solution, but the solution will be written in alpha beta. Right? So which is easy for you. So I will write x3, you can follow, right? So from this, you know x3 is equal to beta minus 5 over alpha minus 2. That is your x3, right? You can do it because alpha minus 2 is non-zero. And then you can write x2, that is 2 minus x3, that is beta minus 5 over alpha minus 2. And you can write x1. Right? So by just simplifying, you can simplify that. Right? So this is how you utilize the conditions for the different types of solutions. And if the solution exists, you can write down the solution as well. Right? So this is about different type of solutions and Gaussian elimination. So I'm going to stop here, and in the next class we are going to talk a little bit more about other concepts in numerical computations by using Gaussian elimination, right? So we are basically going to start talking about some eigenvalues of a matrix, and then we are going to talk about how we can estimate the error in your computations, right? So we will talk about that in the next class. So I'm stopping here, and then I will continue in the next time.